Welcome back to our fourth and final installment of AJAXifying Your Forms Theater. When we left off in our last video, we finished up our validation and adding classes and removing classes to our response div, and we wrote our submit form function, and we initialized all our callbacks for our AJAX request. And we were left with our form here that make sure we put something in all of our fields, and then shows the user that it's doing something when we submit it, and then tells us there's an error. Well, because we haven't written our feedback.php yet, which is what we told our AJAX request to submit our form stuff to. So no further ado, let's write file, new, PHP, create. Alright, now we can just get rid of all this jazz. I'm not going to have any HTML in this. So let's save this, save as feedback.php. Alright, so let's open up our PHP, skip down and close our PHP, and then within our opening and closing PHP tags, let's do something. Well, for our example, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, because I'm testing locally, this happens so fast, and probably happens really fast on a live server too, we're going to tell PHP to sleep for 3 seconds before it does anything, so that we can get a good feel for the loader image and make sure everything's working correctly and blah blah blah. Next, we've got to post our data. Yep, so we got to post our data. So let's create some variables. Name is going to be equal to, let's use PHP's trim function, and let's post this variable. Post our variable of name. Oops. Yeah. Alright. Let's get our variable of email and use the trim on it, get rid of any white space. Let's see, underscore post. Alright, all you PHP pros out there, you can't be laughing at me because I haven't been doing PHP very long, so I'm sure this is totally not optimized, not the way you would do it, but hey, it works, so we're gonna go with it. So message is going to be equal to trim any white space from it as well, post, and that's going to be message. And let's see, we have our honeypot, and we're just going to post it. We don't want to do anything to it. Post honey pot and human check, and equals post human, human check. Yep. Alright, so we've posted our data. Now let's check to make sure that the honeypot and the human check are both what they're supposed to be before we do anything else. So if let's see, honeypot is equal to http:// and use PHP's empty function to check that the human check is indeed empty, because you remember we told jQuery to make sure it was empty, so it should be sending an empty variable. So open our brace, skip down a bit, close our brace, and inside of here, what are we gonna do? Well, this function is only gonna, or this condition is only gonna run if no spam bots have changed our hidden fields. So let's create an error message variable to hold our error messages. We'll initialize that to nothing, and let's create our regular expression variable, which is going to hold our regular expression to validate our email. So let me grab that real quick. I'm not going to type it out, and we'll paste that in there. It does the same thing as the one we did on the jQuery side. It allows any combination of characters and letters and junk, and supports up 2 and 4 character TLDs. So now that we got those, let's create some validating conditions. So if we'll use, this is just very similar to JavaScript's matching function, but this is PHP, so we're going to say if it doesn't match. So if preg match our regular expression, so regular exp expression, comma, and what are we trying to match? Our variable of email, which should be the email that was posted to the form. Opening brace, closing brace, and inside of here, if it doesn't match, then let's put something in our error message, which we will make plus equal to, and the consonanting operator in PHP is the period, not the plus sign. So anyhow, I found that out the hard way. Let's say paragraph tag, a valid email is required. Close our paragraph tag off, and a semicolon. So we're done with the email. Let's check our name. If we'll use PHP's empty function, if our name variable is empty, then let's add another error message. So we'll say error message is going to be plus equal to, let's see here, let's see, please provide your name. And close that off. Let's put a little space in here so it's a little more readable. Alright. So then what we got left? Message, if we'll use the empty function. If our message variable is empty, then we want our error message to also include that, plus equal to paragraph, what are we going to say? A message is required. Yep. I forgot my period in these other two. Even though they don't need them, I'm going to put them in there. period. Yay. Okay, what's next? Alright, so we're going to follow the same logic that we had in our JavaScript. So if our error message variable is not empty, we need to let the user know. Otherwise, if it is empty, then we know they've submitted the form correctly, and we can tell them thanks. So the only real difference from this being a real world application or not is, I mean, we're not really doing anything other than sending back a message to the user, said, hey, thanks, you filled out the form. In essence, we're saying, hey, thanks, you filled out the form correctly. But we're not mailing it anywhere, we're not storing any data in the database, but it'd be very simple functionality to add at a later date. This just kind of shows you the basics of how to make the AJAX call to the server and get the response back and do something with that data. So if our if our error message is not empty, error message is not empty, using the not operator and the empty function, then what? Well, the first thing we're going to do is create a new variable called return. And that's what we're going to send back to JavaScript as a JSON object. So we're going to create an array here with error, and we're going to set that equal to true. And we're going to add to our array the message key, and we're going to set that equal to our message. So let's use some big stuff here. H3, we're going to say, oops, you're a dummy, you didn't fill the form out right. No. Oops, let's see, the request was successful, but your form is not filled out correctly. That way we can let them know that the server got their request and everything went well there, but they tried to trick us, or they didn't have JavaScript enabled, and so there was an error. So we'll give them that message, quotes, and then we'll tack on plus our error messages. So our error message variable, which will be error message. There we go. Alright. So then, otherwise, let me get a little more white space here. Alright, otherwise, we know the form was filled out correctly, and so let's do something else. Let's take our return variable, or our return variable that we're going to return as an array, and let's change our error to false, because there was not one, and we'll change our message to let's say let's just put it in a paragraph tag, and we'll say thanks for your feedback, space in the quotes, plus our name variable, so we can make it a little more personalized, plus let's see here, plus our quotes and a period and our closing tag and semicolon. Alright, one other thing I forgot here is, let's see, we've got to encode this as JSON. So there's an error, we store that stuff in those variables in that array, and then we need to call we need to echo out back to our AJAX call PHP's JSON encode function, and we're going to encode our variable of return. And then for good measure, we'll just call exit on the script. There we go. So we got that, and essentially the same thing here. Thanks for your feedback, whoever submitted the form. And then we'll echo out our JSON encode function with our variable return that houses our array of stuff. Alright, so that's it. So, but then if this function never runs, what's going to happen? Well, nothing. So they'll never know anything, and you'll still get a success response from the server. So let's stick an else statement here that says, if I can spell else, let's have this down line. Alright, so if the honeypot and the human check don't pan out, then let's give them an error message. And let's say opening brace, skip a couple lines, closing brace. Let's just grab and copy this. Oops, I missed it. Let's copy this and paste it down here. And I think I grabbed the brace. Let's see here. Copy. Oh, paste. Alright. So, but let's change our error message, and this is going to have to be true. We'll change this back to true, and we'll change our error message to say, let's see here, H3, oops, oops, there was a problem with your submission. That'll be good. Please try again. Yeah, close off our H3 tag. We're good there, and we've got our encode. Bam, we're done. File save. So let's look at this array here. Remember this stuff I was telling you about earlier that said probably didn't make much sense in the JavaScript? Well, let me see here. Let's go take a look at it. Right here. When I said data.error and data.message, these two right here. This data is our JSON data being sent back to us from the server. And so we look for our error key and we look for the message key, and then we spit those things out. So let's go back to our feedback, and then there they are. Error was either going to be true or false, and message is going to have some type of a message. So let's save this file, save index.html, and let's go check it out and see what we got here. Let's refresh the page, make sure our errors are still working. They are. Norton's. Alright, let's fill out our form, and some email at somedomain.com, and let's give a message of this form is really nice and you are cool. And let's submit it. Okay, we got some processing going on here. Ha! Thanks for your feedback, Aaron. Great. So let's just see what happens then. Let's disable some of our error checking to see what we get back from the server. So let's just comment this block out here and take a look. So we're no longer going to validate the name field on the client side. And let's see what happens. So let's refresh the field. Let's fill out these other fields and see what happens. So we're submitting it and see what the server does. Oops, the request was successful, but your form is not filled out correctly. and it tells us what we didn't fill out, which is our name. So there you have it, folks. Now you should be able to apply this method to almost any form. Maybe if you guys like this, we want to expand on it further, we can do a more real world example where we do, say, an AJAX login, or we send an email to somebody when they submit their stuff, or we store some data in a database. I don't know, whatever you think. Your comments and stuff will kind of guide us. So I hope you enjoy. Take care. Happy coding.